Hello, my name's David Seaman, and this is the Three Lions Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions Podcast. My name's Russell Osborne. This is an independent England football supporters podcast. I hope you're well. I find you as I'm on my way to Wembley this Thursday evening. Thursday seems odd for England to me. Feels odd like when it's a Sunday or a Monday. I guess that's the way it is now, isn't it? With qualification games being spread across 7-8 days. But here we are, Greece at home in the Nations League. In the previous episode, I mentioned that both Ezri Konsa and Morgan Gibbs-White, they were both suspect, weren't they, to being in the squad. They've had injuries with their clubs. They did eventually withdraw, as did Kobe Mainoo. And for a period of time, it looked like Lee Carsley was happy with the squad that had remained. But he did eventually call up Newcastle's Tino Livramento again, and Liverpool's Curtis Jones, both from the under-21s, who are scheduled to play both Ukraine and Azerbaijan. Now also, Carsley announced that John Stones would captain the side for the first time, which was something I wasn't aware of. Interesting stat, that one. And Cole Palmer, in the last week, had won the England Player of the Year for 2023-24, which isn't not a bad achievement for a player who only made his senior debut in November of last year. Now, I'm sure you've seen the news recently. George Baldock. He was a player who fans of MK Dons and Sheffield United will no doubt be aware of. He'd only just moved recently to Panathinaikos in Greece, a country that he represented on 12 occasions. Made his debut back in 2022. Sadly, yesterday, the day before our game against Greece, he was pronounced dead at his home in Athens. And whilst we're all hopeful, confident of an England win, I'm sure the Greeks are equally confident going into it. But this may galvanise them together in a way that tragic events like this can do. So I'd just like to pass on my condolences to his family and his friends.
So welcome to Wembley. The DJ has finished her set. I've been waiting for her to finish so I could actually make myself be heard. Let's go through the team, because it's an interesting one. Lee Carsley, and as I speak, he is down on the pitch coaching the players. He's actually like one-on-one with some of the players as they're like having a pop at goal. It's really great to see. Anyway, the team he's picked, and they say it's interesting. We've got no Kane starting tonight, and in a way, it kind of feels like he's picked a load of players. He's put them all in a jar, shaken it up, and just thrown it out. And the first 11 that have come out he's chosen. But let's go through it. We've got Pickford in goal. Trent Alexander-Arnold. We've got Rico Lewis, Declan Rice, John Stones, as I said earlier, is captain tonight. Now this is where it gets exciting, because it's like all the attacking players have like come out in one go. Saka, Bellingham, Foden, Gordon, and Colwell, and Cole Palmer as well. It's a really attacking starting 11. I'm not quite sure what the formation will be or who's going to play in what position, but yeah, it looks exciting. I'm intrigued to see how this will go. I'm just looking now to see where Lee Carsley is now. It should be easy to spot him with his bald head.
And now lining up for England.
So I'm just thinking back to the Finland game last month, and there was just a little section of Finns I seem to remember. Where I'm standing now, behind the goal, you can sort of look across to the left-hand side, and the Greeks have got a whole corner. There's going to be a fair amount of Greeks tonight over there. It'll be good to see. You can see there, like, blue and white flags there.
Wembley, please welcome the teams, Greece and England. In the last 24 hours, our visitors have been touched by sad news following the tragic and very sudden passing of George Bulldog. Players from both teams and officials will now gather around the semicircle to observe a period of silence. George was a Panathinaikos player who won 12 caps for Greece and spent the majority of his career in the English game, predominantly with MK Dons and Sheffield United. We send our condolences to his friends and family and will now pause for a period of silence.
Greece had an absolute opportunity there, and they'll be regretting that. Maybe Pickford put us in a right trouble, losing the ball outside of his box. And the Greek fellows chipped it in. I think it was Colwell who cleared it off the line. Resulted in a corner, where we are now. Went in, but gone for offside. We've got to be careful here. We've got to be careful. Greece have countered a couple of times. We don't seem to be knowing where we are at the back. 10 minutes in.
Half-time score in the UEFA Nations League, England 0, Greece 0.
There you go, 0-0. I would hazard a guess to say there'll be some changes come the second half. Those that front four were a bit toothless, really. We are certainly missing a focal point. Obviously, with no Kane, you kind of realise we kind of playing the way we are. It kind of shows where we're missing Kane. But it makes me think, well, second half, we've got Solanke on the bench, we've got Watkins on the bench. They would be a focal point to use. I can't see how we can persist with the front four. It doesn't seem to be working. At the back, we look a bit at 6s and 7s at times. I'm not quite sure. I'm not convinced by Levi Colwell as the centre-half as yet. I kind of wonder, actually, maybe we do need Kyle Walker still, just to bring us that experience. I wonder it's just a little bit too soon to play the younger, inexperienced players straight in as we're doing. I don't know. But I think we will have changes come the second half. Well, 11 players have come out. No changes. Not for England, anyway. Greece have scored early in the second half. Slotted it past Pickford. They had all the possession. The defence just again looked at sixes and sevens. No one knew what they were really doing, when to put a foot in. There's the blue flare.
Goal scorer for Greece, number 14, Vangelis Pavlidis.
It looks a nice moment. All the Greeks have gathered at one side with what looks like a T-shirt in memory of Baldock. Nice touch. I'm sure the pictures will be shown around the world of that. But again, not good enough. That wasn't good enough at all.
Substitution for England, leaving the field number 7, Bukayo Saka, replaced by number 23, Noni Madueke, replaced by number 11, Ollie Watkins.
Watkins on for Anthony Gordon. Shortly after Greece had put the ball in the net for the second time, disallowed, but they're breaking away far too easily for my liking. But hopefully now with a more out-and-out striker, a more of a focal point, we can change the way we're playing here. Foden off, Solanke on. So we've got two strikers now, Watkins and Solanke. This is more of an attacking formation. See if we can salvage something from this.
Goal scorer for Greece, number 14, Vangelis Pavlidis.
Never seen Wembley empty so quickly. Greeks are loving it. Oh, it's gone to VAR. Greece have had the ball in the net, in England's net, about 4 times tonight. It remains 1-0. A get out of jail card. We've used a few too many of them this year. Good goal though, to be fair, good goal. Still though, the Greeks have gone up the other end, won themselves a corner. This game is all over the place, or England are all over the place.
Goal scorer for Greece, number 14, Vangelis Pavlidis.
I'm assuming that one's going to count. 90 minutes on the clock. I can't really see what was actually going on there, but there were a lot of bodies on the floor. It's at the other end of the pitch to where I'm standing. But it's nothing more than Greece have deserved. Fair play to them. We've been atrocious. I'm not quite sure how this is going to reflect on Lee Carsley. I really don't know. I don't know how this is going to help him going. Well, it's not going to help him going forward, surely, but it's the players on the pitch. But he's picked these and the formation as such.
Full-time score here at Wembley Stadium, England 1, Greece 2.
Right, it's Friday. It's my lunch break. I've put myself through watching the highlights, and I have to say, there wasn't a great deal of enjoyment there, was there? Apparently Greece 48th ranked team in the world. They became the lowest ranked side to beat England in a competitive game since we lost to Northern Ireland in 2005. Who apparently back then were 116th when the rankings were around then. I remember that night as well. I didn't go to that one, but I remember hearing it on the radio, listening to it on the radio. I don't think it was on the telly at the time, but yeah, that wasn't a pretty night. And as bad a performance as that was, I'm trying to find a little bit of perspective. I think it's needed. Maybe it was a blessing in disguise. Maybe it clears things up a little bit. Lee Carsley selected players on form or merit. He picked an attacking team. These are all the things that we, I, you, many of us, wanted Gareth Southgate to do. Remember? Take the handbrake off. Carsley did it. People were excited by the look of it. They're reading it on a screen prior to the game. They're looking at that going, wow, this is going to be exciting. How many goals are we going to score? He done it. It backfired. There's probably clearly there's a whole lot more to it than just that. But it didn't work. We kind of got it out of our system now. I don't play computer games, but it was almost like it was a computer game formation. Players they all seem to have an off night. It happens. That said, it seems to have happened quite a lot this year, despite making the finals of the Euros. We've had some poor performances this year, but it wasn't a side that we saw last month against Ireland. Finland was a little bit flip-floppy at times. Now, I don't want to say that last night was a game that didn't matter, because it did, but if he was going to do that formation, maybe a Nations League game was the game to do it in, rather than a World Cup qualifier or a Euro qualifier. Would it have had the same effect in a friendly against a Nigeria or a Hungary, someone like that? May have got a result doing it like that in a friendly, but then may have sort of lost the bottle to do it in an actual game where points are at stake. I don't know. I mean, the ramifications will become clearer later in the group, but it's done now, and it didn't work. There were 3 games played and 3 left. We may well be looking at a playoff to get out of League B, which isn't something that I thought we'd be talking about. I've got to be honest though, what has been surprising is the fickleness of fans, or what you read on social media, which you have to take with a huge pinch of salt. There's a knee-jerk reaction to Lee Carsley. Prior to him taking the job temporarily, the noise was fairly loud for him. 2 wins behind him, and there was no real consensus that it should be anyone but him going forward. It was all positive stuff. It's like there was a lot of it worked for Spain, so we should follow their model. But now there's the immediate clamour is he's not the right man for the job. And I have to say, I'm willing to give him another opportunity. I think he's got the final 2 games in November, I believe. But I think give him the Finland game to redeem himself. Let's just have a look at Group 2 as it stands after that Greece game last night. Greece are top with 9 points. England are second, still with 6. The Republic of Ireland, well, they beat Finland last night away from home, so they're on 3 points. Finland are bottom of the group with 0 points. So Finland will be looking to register a win or a performance at the very least on Sunday, and England will be licking their wounds and hoping to get back on track. So the day after the Greece game, I had the pleasure of meeting some English football royalty. It was in the town next to me. Sir Geoff Hurst was having an audience with. It's all part of his farewell tour. This was a birthday present given to me earlier in the year. Still plenty of shows going around for it. If you get the opportunity to go, I can highly recommend it. First-hand accounts of that game, those goals from all those years ago. Although he's the last remaining member of the starting 11 from that day, I always think it's worth pointing out that there are still other squad members still with us. But he gave his views on the current game and, of course, VAR and goal line technology, which, well, in his day, in the final, but as he said, didn't matter anyway, we got a fourth. But as the evening went on, there was a Q&A that was opened up to the floor. West Ham questions came up, thoughts on other players of his time came up. Then it came. Who would he like to see as the next England manager? This, of course, following the Greece game. Interestingly, he opted for one of Jurgen Klopp or Pep Guardiola. Obviously, Jurgen Klopp now has taken this role within the Red Bull organisation of teams, so Jurgen Klopp's not an option. But yeah, he was keen for Pep Guardiola. He did say that he would like an English manager, but he said they were the best around at this moment in time. And around this time was as Thomas Tuchel was being touted as the favourite to take the job, which was then followed up by Matt Law of The Telegraph claiming that Lee Carsley doesn't want the job on a permanent basis, which throws me right off track now as to what my thoughts actually are on the role and who should have it. I'm not 100% on Tuchel. Can't put my finger on it. The German thing? Is it a thing? It plays on my mind, I have to be honest. I can't deny that he's a good manager. Champions League with Chelsea, titles with PSG and Bayern. But he doesn't seem to stay in a position for a long period of time. I've heard stories about his man management style with players that some maybe didn't get on with. So I want to say England isn't right for a foreigner's first international job. But I can't back that up because, well, England was Sven's first international job, as it was Fabio Capello's. But neither of them won a trophy. Third time lucky, maybe. But as I said, I still can't get past the German thing. I think Germany, they've always had a German manager, haven't they? Maybe the French have too, and the Spanish. We seem to be obsessed with... Well, maybe not obsessed. I think the thing is, do we take an English manager and accept that maybe things aren't going to be as we want them? Who knows how it'll be? And having an overseas manager isn't a guaranteed trophy win. There's no right or wrong, I don't think. Just going to have to wait and see how all this pans out. Anyway, where was I? Sir Geoff Hurst. If you do get the chance to see him, do it. I've had a few messages asking me if he would have done the intro to the show. And believe you me, I was
hoping to get the opportunity. I think it would have sounded great. I'd never done a meet and greet before, but in all honesty, it was a bit like a conveyor belt of, hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. Photographer says, smile, click, next. And then there's a quick autograph and you're moved along. So there wasn't really the opportunity. There were 50 plus people all waiting in line. I guess well-oiled machines don't take kindly to obstructions. Had I have known that was going to be the way of it, maybe I would have joined the queue last. Who knows? But Sir Jeff, if you're listening, it was a great evening. Really enjoyed it. Drop us a voice note. Let's move on to Sunday evening then. Finland in Helsinki, a game I was unable to go to, but I'm delighted to say I've been joined by Coventry and England fan, friend of the show, CJ Joyner, who was there. CJ, hello, mate.
Hello, Russ.
You well?
Yeah, all good, thank you.
Cool.
All good.
Cool. I've just mentioned about the managers there. We'll come to that in a bit. But first, Finland, how was it? Tell us how it was.
Great place. Not the biggest city in the world, but there was a lot to do there. We did a walking tour, did a little bit of that, so to find out, really interesting with like the history and the way how the Russians invaded it and so on. We went over to an island where there was a fort.
Yeah, I'd heard about that.
As per the recommendation of a very good podcast. I can't think where I heard that. Yeah, and then we also did. We went down to the spa. So me and a mate went there, and we went in the pool and in the ice plunge pool.
I'd seen this,
which wasn't very pleasant. But
that's not my idea of fun.
We still had a bit of a swim for 10 minutes in there, yeah. and then we there's also the sauna as well.
Okay,
yeah.
I know there was England were only given 1,600 tickets. Well, there are a lot more than that. How many people went without tickets? Do you reckon?
I think there was quite a few in the home end. There seemed to be a few home end tickets become available because it was sold out. So there did seem to be quite a few home end tickets sort of pop up and become available as people were getting lucky on the waiting list.
Right.
Which is kind of understandable. So we although 1,600 isn't great. The end of the day, they sold it out.
Yeah.
So they sold out the home end. So you don't mind it as much, really.
No, I mean
when that happens,
it didn't seem to be the biggest of grounds, did it?
It's 31 or 32,000, so it's the same as kind of what we've got at the CBS and Southampton, Leicester, that sort of size. Brighton, I think it's about that size. Wolves,
yeah.
It's all sort of that ballpark.
Looks a decent ground for an athletics stadium.
Yeah, we thought that for a stadium with an athletics track, it was good. And then you had that big tower that's next to the stadium that adds a little bit of character. And that was the Olympic Tower. So yeah,
did you go up that? Did you?
I don't know. Didn't even think about it, to be honest with you. No,
there was one of the when the it was ITV Sam Matterface when he goes off on a tangent. He was saying that they went up that tower during the war, and they could only stay up there in cold months for about half an hour because any longer than that, about 70 meters, 70 meters up, and they had to come back down after half hour. Interesting. Obviously the game came off the back of the disastrous Greece game. There was 6 changes this time. Henderson for Pickford, in came Walker and Gay at the back. Angel Gomez made his second appearance. Harry Kane and Jack Grealish also returned. It was more of a structured formation, I think we could say this time. What was sort of the general feeling before the game with fans, with yourself about, I don't know, this particular game, sort of on the back of the Greece one?
Well, I think we definitely needed to make some changes, didn't we?
Yeah.
And let's face it, as soon as Kane is fit, he plays, doesn't he? There's,
as captain as well.
Yeah, and I mean, he probably makes that decision himself to an extent. The same as probably the likes of Walker and people like that. A bit further back, Henderson, I would imagine, would have made that sort of choice. They know their bodies, they know what they can do, and at the end of the day, they want they want to play all the time, but they look at the team side of things as well and think, you know what, I'm not feeling so good today, Gaffers. Ankles feeling a bit iffy, so you're not going to play today. I might come off the bench in a bit, but I think senior pros, you can trust them with that to a certain extent. So I think we had a little bit more structure to things. The problem was on Thursday, I just don't think anybody kind of knew where they were meant to be playing.
Yeah.
There seemed to be a lot of switching about. Bellingham and Palmer seemed to be running into each other from time to time because they didn't know who was playing forward and who was playing behind and so on. And I've got to say, the only thing I will say on the game on Thursday, we went to Azerbaijan. We went to Estonia v Azerbaijan on Friday night, and I've got to say that was considerably better than what we saw the day before. So,
what's the score in that?
Anyway, that finished 3-1, and I've got no idea how that happened. Literally, 3-1 to Estonia. Azerbaijan absolutely wiped the floor with them for the first 15 minutes. They could have genuinely been 3 or 4-0 up.
Right.
After 15, maybe 20 minutes. And it ended up being the 3-1 the other way.
Yeah,
so,
right.
And Tallinn, what a place.
Is it?
Unreal place.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's 10 years on Saturday since the last time I missed a game away from COVID and stuff like that. And that was in Estonia. And I kind of realised that the other day. So it was quite fitting, really, that we were there, and I actually got to watch a game there. It's the first time I watched a game in Finland as well, so that's it was quite nice to two new countries to tick off completely, and two new ones for watching football. But yeah, anyway, like back to our game, I thought that we looked a lot better. I think in spells it was probably the best we've looked at the previous 3 games. I don't think we were massively brilliant in the 2 games in September. I think people saying, "Oh God, Southgate, that wouldn't have happened under Southgate." Now, under Southgate, we used to beat those teams 4 or 5-0 in qualifiers, because we haven't come up against teams like that in the Nations League, because we are where we are, aren't we? Now. And that's an interesting point, really. Before all the other games we played in the Nations League have been against reasonably decent opposition, top level opposition, and likewise with the game on Thursday, these sort of games pop up every so often. Like it was around that time that we lost. It might have even been to the day, 5 years to the day that we lost to Czech Republic. So
it was certainly around then, yeah.
Yeah, I think it came up on Footballogy either that day or the day before that was the day. So those results happened under Southgate as well. But most of the time, those 2-0s in those first 2 games against that level of team in qualifiers, we would have been beating them 4 or 5-0, maybe 3-0.
Yeah.
But the same with regards to those they do happen. The bad results did as well from time to time, but they were rare. The game on Sunday, I just thought we actually played some nice stuff. I think we played some nice stuff. I thought Finland looked a little bit better than what they did before. I think they upped their game a little bit, which is it's good. It's good to see that they did that. Yeah, they're at home as well. So and we still managed to do the business against them. I thought actually Kane although he wasn't there, he didn't really have a massive amount of opportunities on the ball in the box to score. But ultimately, he linked the play really well. I thought, particularly he played the ball between him and Grealish a couple of times, and he looked quite good. And
point.
I've always said, you need that focal point, and he's something that the other striker, he's got something that the other strikers don't offer. Really, his link play is, I've always said, is the best part of his game. That game is Seville. So at the time of recording, we were actually heading towards that ground. What was it, 6 years ago? But I've got to say that day was his best performance for England. He didn't score, and I've probably said that on this podcast a few times and a few other times as well. But that says all you need to know about him. And our record goal scorer, he's going to score a lot more goals going forward for both club and country. And I just think, but he's so important when he drops back. But the thing is, he's got to have those players around him that cut in and go ahead. So he almost drops back into like a number 10 role or number 8 role sometimes. And then he's got those wide players that effectively form a front two, so to speak. And that kind of does work, and it did work, to be fair. And Alexander Arnold with a free kick. I don't think, again, he had a fantastic game at all. I think he was very poor on Thursday. Him and Colwell. I know Colwell had that issue with the issue, but unreal clearance off the line. But aside from that, he was very, very, very poor. But I think ultimately that free kick kind of makes up for it a little bit, doesn't it?
He certainly glossed it.
And I thought we were going to be getting it. I can't remember who else was on the ball now, but I think it was it must have been a left footer. So I was thinking we're going to be getting an in-swinger here. And I was looking down at, I think it was one of the centre halves that seemed to be quite open with nobody on him.
Right.
I can't remember which one it was, but we were looking down and thinking, that's where the ball's going. Because there didn't seem to be anybody really marking him. So none of us expected him to take that free kick. And I mean, well, we're pleased he did.
Yeah.
Because, he's such a good technical footballer. Still not convinced he's a very good defender, but technique-wise with the ball, he's just unbelievable. And if he's playing well and with that technique, he's worth just putting in the squad and effectively playing almost like a 4-3-2 or something, and just saying, look, Trent, you be the extra man, just play wherever you want. Just ping some balls in the box, have some shots at goal, and just do whatever you want. We need to change things up a little bit, but yeah, like I said, I was very pleased for him. Really, he definitely needed that goal.
Yeah, there you got it. And then Declan Rice sort of tapped one in after work down on that was on the left hand side, I think, by I can't remember. I was going to say Watkins. It came on. Yeah,
it was Watkins. And again, I'm pleased for Watkins. He showed what he could do there with he showed what he could do against Holland, didn't he? When he came off the bench with that goal scoring touch, but also he showed what he could do there with the ball kind of coming forward and creating that chance for someone else, and he did excellent. And it was a nice little deft touch from Rice to push it past the keeper. So all in all, not a bad performance at all, and one that I'm very happy with.
Yeah, just touching back on Harry Kane, do we think maybe now coming off, he's going to only be lasting like 70 minutes a game now for England? Is that because that's pretty much what's happened throughout the summer or on occasions? But I mean, obviously he was injured or was carrying an injury or wasn't himself. But I'm just wondering, because he's not getting any younger, whether this is what we're going to be seeing now. Harry Kane sort of only getting 60, 70 minutes of a game.
Yeah, and then you start to look at it and think...
There's a transition then, isn't it?
Yeah, you've got a bit of an elephant in the room there, because you think your captain almost certainly won't be playing 90 minutes. Yeah. So is that... And I mean, one last thing on Thursday. We don't want to look at that game any longer than we have to, but distinct lack of leaders. We had no Kane, Maguire's not in the squad. Sometimes you look at that team. Mark Gay's been superb.
Yeah.
I love the bloke. Uncle Mark, they all call him, don't they?
Uncle
And
Mark.
I think, yeah, and that's both at club and international level. The players are calling him that. So. But he just seems a lot older than his years. So,
Right.
but anyway, so he, I think he's been fantastic. But sometimes you look at you've got to look beyond a player's raw ability, raw talent, and sometimes, maybe it's worth having a player that has got a bit more of a leadership quality, not a terrible centre half as well. I mean, I could never question Maguire's performances for England. But I think sometimes him being in the squad, and we've got to remember there's no Jordan Henderson now as well, and players like that. Trippier's gone.
Yeah. Those experienced heads.
That we are losing these players. It looks like Luke Shaw, who knows? We're losing a lot of experienced players, and as good as Stones is as a centre half, there's very few clubs in the world that wouldn't want him playing for them. But he isn't a leader,
Right.
And I think that was a big thing on Sunday, that we had that leader on the pitch in Kane. And it's something that really we need to look at the bigger picture going forwards, because if he's the only effective leader on that pitch, and then you take off, you put in the likes of Watkins, it's not happening. And the other thing is as well with Watkins, similar sort of thing with when Tony was available, which he isn't really now.
No.
Let's be honest, is he? But it was only for a small period, obviously, beforehand, where Tony was available. But what we do need to look at as well is, people seem to be talking, and there seems to be this notion in the media, a lot of media as well, that Watkins is the man to pass the torch to. He's about 2 or 3 years younger than Kane. He's only won tournament. He's only probably got one more tournament effectively in him when Kane retires. And you just don't know. He might be the sort of guy that 31, 32, he calls it a day for England. That's only in a couple of years' time. 3-4 years' time. Kane could still be playing at 35, 36 at that point. So
True.
it's something we do need to think about, that, we need to maybe be looking beyond Watkins as well, really. And who else is there? And you're struggling a little bit.
Yeah,
I
get you. Yeah. Well, let's move on to the other elephant in the room, I guess, is the managerial situation. I mean, I've said before, Lee Carsley was my preferred candidate. That was prior to Greece. I was prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt for Finland, and I think now it's the benefit of the doubt for the next 2 games. But I think he may have talked himself out of it, and we've got various other names in the frame. What's your opinions, and what did you hear? What were the sort of thoughts on the ground in Finland?
A lot of people have kind of accepted that he's not the man.
Yeah,
I think it's a shame. I desperately wanted him to do well. I've met Lee a few times, just through sort of family connections, really.
Right.
He's actually one of the funniest blokes I've ever met in my life. His personality is just unbelievable. Like, you don't kind of get that, but he is genuinely like a really funny bloke. But either way, I think tactically, he's shown what he can do. Coaching wise, he's shown what he can do. He's turned. There's big jobs out there that he could have taken in the past, and he hasn't taken him due to family commitments, really. And so there's no doubt in his coaching credentials, but I don't think I don't think he really wanted the job.
This is what I'm thinking.
He's kind of displayed that, hasn't he? And it's like 2016 all over again. Southgate did not want that job. He turned it down.
Yeah.
And then we bought in Allardyce. What happened, and we had to go back to Southgate, and he took it in an interim basis for 4 games. It was like I said, it's a similar sort of start actually. I know we lost the other day, but it wouldn't surprise me if we came out with 4 wins. From effectively another. If we came out with another 2 wins, so that would mean we'd had 5 wins, and Southgate was hired on 4.
I mean, if you were to say right at the beginning, before all the games were played, would you take 5 wins out of 6, not knowing what the 6th one was?
Yeah.
I think the vast majority of us, would have said yes.
I would do, and I did say, like in the previous after that international break, I said, I wouldn't be too disappointed if we lost one of the next 4 games. Ultimately,
it's just the manner of it, wasn't it?
But it's the way how we lost it, the performance, and everything else. The team selection, I can kind of see what he was doing.
Oh yeah, I do. Totally.
Just trying something a little bit different.
Yep.
Basically doing what half the people in the country wanted to see.
Exactly.
And let's have 11 attacking players on the pitch, but it just didn't quite work. It just didn't quite work out, did it? So, I think it's a shame. It's just not going to work out, and we're in a bit of a crossroads now of what happens.
This is right. Where do we look now?
I mean, they're talking about Tom Tuchel, saying he's very. It seems like there's quite close talks, and we're not. That we're not far off, maybe, from getting something there, getting something sorted. I'm not. I don't want a foreign manager. I've always said that. I think it's a bit. I never liked the fact that Serena Wiegmann was England manager. I think it slaps a bit, and it gives a little bit of a slap in the face with English coaches that the FA have said a number of times down the years that English coaches need to be given a chance at the top level, and then potentially we're facing the 2 top jobs going to foreign coaches, which is something that I think the FA need to look at themselves for, really, because ultimately, and even in the back room, Hasselbank was a key part of that back room. You're thinking, well, what? I know Chris Powell has done it before, and he's doing very well now elsewhere, but I think you do need to be looking at what is going on. The FA are responsible for this, and these coaches need to be brought through, and there's just not enough of them in the Premier League at the moment. There really isn't. And I mean, whoever takes over, I'd like to see them bring in some of the younger coaches that are coaching elsewhere. Maybe the likes of bringing Carrick. Maybe he's somebody I really like.
We've already got Ashley Cole is sort of employed in the sort of a assistant sort of position. I don't know whether that would still remain if, say, Tuchel was to come in, whether he'd bring with his own staff in, and Ashley Cole would be standing on the sides like he was in that Roma picture.
Leaning in the photo. Leaning over the fence at St George's Park, so he's still there. But I think the other, I mean, I'm pleased Pochettino he's taken the American job, so now there's now an entire ocean between him and the England job, which is only a good thing. Because I've never been that taken by him. I think he seems like a nice chap, and he seems, he's had a certain level of success, but I think I genuinely think there's better managers out there. I'm pleased Mourinho hasn't been spoken about at all, because recently, has he at all? No. Because let's face it, people moan about Southgate playing defensive football. If Mourinho took over, we'd go 1-1 up against San Marino, and he'd bring on 5 defenders to protect the lead. It's just what he's all about. Even 10, 15 years ago, he would have done that in his pomp. So ultimately, I never wanted him in charge, ever.
The only other name that obviously is being mentioned is Guardiola, isn't it? But I think he's too tied to City. And even then, I'm still in that Tuchel sort of position and limbo of, I'm not sure. I don't want it, but I'm.
Well, the thing that worries me with him is that he would come in. I mean, look, he's going to do a great job, isn't he? If he come wherever he goes, he's going to do a great job. My problem is he would come in, and does he really want the not to have the day-to-day running of?
And with any
how
manager.
long, potentially he could, so let's say, for example, he comes in, he does a great job next year, over the next year. We win every game until November. We qualify. And then he looks at, oh, right, we haven't got a game now till March. That's something that could really hit home to him.
Yeah.
He could think, over in between, say, June and September, there's not normally that many games going in during that time anyway at club level. There's actually a very, there's not much time. There's very rarely there's many games going on there. You miss a few competitive games and that's kind of it. But it's that period over the winter where,
he's a day-to-day manager, isn't he?
He is, yeah. And what worries me is that he could actually take the job and then just think, actually, do you know what, this just isn't for me. And then he walks out, and then we've got a big, we've then got a problem, haven't we? We've got another problem. We've got to think, well, what do we do now? Yeah. And maybe we get on the phone to Gareth and say, come on, come back, get the, but you
get the
just
band
don't
back
know.
Together.
You just don't know. And what I would say as well is, as good as he is, you just can't get over the fact that a foreign manager has never won the World Cup.
That's very true.
So no country has ever won the World Cup with a foreign manager. Only one country has ever won the Euros with a foreign manager, and that was a freak incident in 2004 with Greece. So, yeah.
There's no guarantees. This is the thing, yeah.
Yeah. Look at the favourites for this tournament. This past tournament, I personally think it was Portugal. They had the best squad going into it, I think. And you look at who their manager is, and you look what he did before, and probably the favourite, who should have been the favourite for a few tournaments before that as well. And that I think that says more about him, to be fair, with Martinez. But I think I just don't like this idea at all. I think it's just so sad that we're potentially going down this road again.
When do we need to make a decision by?
It's got to be pretty soon. I mean, by March would be nice. But I suppose if we can make a decision now when they're available, then Kazi wants to go back to the 21s, doesn't he? So he can drop back in and potentially they come in for November, but I don't know.
Would we take a new manager for the last two games?
If they're available and they want to come in, I don't see why not, or at least form some part of the setup. And it would make sense. Do you know what? It would make sense to have Carsley actually involved within that setup because he knows so many of those players. Yeah,
well, this is obviously one of the reasons why people thought that he's the next manager, because there's the transition of players and him as the manager. I'm just thinking back to when, I think it was 96, when Terry Venables and Glenn Hoddle were there was that transition period, and Glenn Hoddle was around Terry Venables' squad, and that didn't really go down too well. But that's a long time ago now. But maybe we will have a new face in place come Greece away.
Possibly. I think it's very unlikely, but you just never know, do you?
No.
If you're appointing someone, you might as well appoint them there and then, really, if you've got games coming up. And like I said, there's no reason really why we couldn't keep Carsley around. I know it wouldn't work going forward because he wouldn't be able to do both roles of the 21s. He just wouldn't be able to. They're playing at the same time.
Yeah,
but it's still, I think it would be worth having him there. Whether that means he's doing it permanently, and somebody else goes into the 21s, I don't know. But or just there, here and there. There, here and there. Really, I don't know.
Interesting times. Did I read that?
Yes.
I think, as you mentioned, Estonia that you went to. Did I read that was your 110th England or consecutive game?
Yeah, this was if you take out COVID and all that, and when we haven't been allowed to be there, like the Wolves home game and so on, that sort of thing. Hungary. It's been. It's the 110th in a row. So,
wow, marvelous milestone. Nice one.
But it's my 50th in a row. At one point, would have been the game in Rijeka, the Croatia game
in the Nations League.
Yeah, so that got stopped, and I don't know how many it is in a row now since the Nations League a couple of years ago when we did have those behind closed doors games. I don't know how long that's been, but how many it's been. But it's probably pushing towards 30. But yeah,
Cracking achievement.
Just despite some of the lows, I've not regretted any of it. So
exactly,
best hobby in the world.
Exactly, all what being an England fan is. CJ,
with the best people in the world.
Oh, I wasn't there. I wasn't there the other day.
No, it wasn't quite the same. So.
I'll be there in Athens. CJ, thank you very much for your time. It's always a pleasure to speak to you and see you.
No worries.
I shall see you then. Thanks to CJ there for his time and telling us all about Finland. As always, interesting thoughts. Now, that was recorded late Tuesday afternoon. I headed out to Pizza Express straight afterwards. Not the Woking branch, I might add. We were celebrating my daughter's birthday. Midway through, my phone, it just began to ping. Da-ding, 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 da-ding. Loads of messages coming through. As you've no doubt seen, Thomas Tuchel has been announced as the new England manager by every news outlet, bar the FA, who it appears are going to have a press conference midday Wednesday the 16th. Now, we've already heard CJ's thoughts, and I have to say, the more I think about it, I'm not jumping through hoops. It doesn't excite me in probably the way it should. In days gone by, the rumour mill would have been awash with names who were supposedly in talks with the FA. This time it just doesn't seem that way. I appreciate that the selection pool wasn't particularly big, but it almost feels a little rushed following the Greece game. Now, Tuchel is 51 years old. He's been out of work since the 18th of May this year after leaving Bayern Munich in their worst final Bundesliga position since 2010. They finished third. He becomes England's 16th full-time manager and the third foreign manager following Sven and Fabio Capello. But as I previously mentioned, he has won the Champions League with Chelsea, titles with PSG and Bayern Munich. But I fear that if things go wrong, and at times there will be dips, I can't see our press giving him much of a honeymoon period. But there we have it. Thomas Tuchel appears to be the next England manager. Let's leave it there. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget, you can follow the show on social media. Just search Three Lions Podcast, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can let me know your thoughts there. What do you think of Thomas Tuchel taking on that poison chalice of the England manager? You can email me, threelionspodcast@gmail.com if that's your preference. So until the next time, take care of yourselves. Auf Wiedersehen.